It's an off day for the Browns, not an off day for us, though. Anthony Meglin, Spencer German here with you to talk about what transpired these last couple days out of Browns training camp in Berea. And boy, oh boy, was there a lot that's gone down. But first, please like, subscribe, follow, whatever you want to call it, the channel here with the Cleveland Browns on SI. Also, head on over to si.com/NFL/Browns. Check out our written content. I will remind you about that later on in the program as well. But we appreciate any support that we can get, and we will be covering this team every step of you throughout the upcoming season. Training camp, starting here with training camp and evolving throughout the regular season and maybe even the postseason if this Browns team really surprises people. So you're going to want to follow along with the conversation each and every step of the way. But
it is.
Megs,
it is starting to heat up. The channel is starting to heat up. There's a lot of content, and now that we're going to get some football going here in the next. I mean, we were talking just a minute ago. Browns play next Friday night. 10 days from now is their first preseason game. So, yeah, starting to get going here, especially on the channel. So make sure you're.
Well, it helps when Jimmy has them talks, and then he
help.
Brings up some controversial subjects like the stadium and whatever else. So, you can find that press conference if you want to go back and listen to that. But we will play a couple clips for you throughout this episode. Jimmy and D Haslam talked about the Quinshon Judkins situation. They talked about the quarterback situation, which I thought the quarterback comments were some of the most enlightening of the entire. 25, it was about 25 minutes of a press conference that we had with them. So we'll get to all those things. But I think the natural starting place, Megs, has to be with the devastating injury news that came down Tuesday. Martin Emerson Jr. he was basically just covering Deontay Johnson on a play. It was in 7-on-7s, a little further down the field, sort of heard him make a noise as he had gotten hurt. And I think the initial thought was like, oh, maybe he's just cramping up. And then we quickly realized it was more serious when his teammates were gathered around. They were all taking a knee. Cart comes out and he's taken off the field in, tears, clearly pretty emotional. It was a tough scene, especially given that he had just talked earlier that day to us in the media about how excited he was to, bounce back from what he considered a disappointing season in 2024. And rightfully so. I think I had talked about it. Like I was anticipating he was going to have a better year. It was a contract year for him. And now you sort of wonder what that means for his future, but definitely a tough blow to the secondary that I thought was off to a really good start at training camp too.
Yeah. That's just on so many levels. It's just sucks for him. There's no other way to slice it. From a personal level, you talk about the contract year, I think that's tertiary to a lot of things, but it's still a big deal for the, I mean, he's a kid, right? I mean, he's going into, potentially the biggest year of his professional life, and just really unfortunate. And it sucks for him. It sucks for this secondary, because now stuff's going to start to shake up a little bit. Greg Newsome's going to bump to the outside. You still have the personnel to do it, but it is a big change, because when he was playing well his rookie and his second year, he was a shutdown type dude. He's tall, he's lanky, he's fast, he's quick. Last year was an anomaly. I hope it was the anomaly, and it just was disappointing. But him on the other side of Denzel Ward, you felt like you had something there, and now maybe those two never played on the same field ever again, which is absolutely a reality of the situation. It's just as unfortunate as you could possibly draw up.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, Greg Newsome going to bump outside. This is a really massive opportunity for him, because he's talked throughout his career about wanting to be an outside corner.
Yeah.
That's where you make the money in the NFL as a corner, is as an outside guy. And he's in a contract year as well. So he has a chance to really prove himself and maybe walk away with a massive payday, whether it's from the Browns or somewhere else, if this happens. And this is also it's kind of, I don't want to say ironic, but it's almost it's like we're making light of the Martin Emerson injury, which we're certainly not. But it is kind of, funny how these things play out this way, because for all the buzz around trading Greg Newsome, really both of the last two seasons, the fact that he's still here makes you at least feel like the defense can still reconcile from this. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a second, because I do wonder if they're running out of if they're on thin ice, if you will, that with that group. But it does help. You allude to it though, he's going to bump outside, and then I think the question becomes who's going to play that slot corner or the nickel corner role. And what's interesting is I think there's going to be different variations of this because we know Cameron Mitchell plays that spot a lot. We saw him do that at practice the last couple of days once Martin Emerson Jr. was hurt. But also, the Browns like to run a lot of 3 safety looks. They did that a ton last year with Rodney McLeod being on the field. And so, and we saw them do that as well once Martin was out of action, out of commission on Tuesday. And we saw that more on Wednesday as well. So I think there's some different options in terms of how they're going to approach making pieces work in the secondary. You'd love to have Martin, obviously, but the Browns also have a season to get ready for, and they have to just kind of, roll with the punches and try to find a way to make it work the best they can. So I think having some different options there, how to do it, I think we'll see those things play out at practice and on the field during games.
Yeah, I absolutely think you will. And you kind of hinted at it, though. Like, this is now your third, a third starter that you were kind of expecting that's not going to play football this year, right? You look at JOK, not going to play football this year. Jordan Hicks was supposed to be your green dot. He retires. And then not even a day after he retires, Martin Emerson tears his Achilles and he's done for you. That's 3 starters that you potentially, maybe JOK not so much, but like at least 2 starters that you had penciled in. And now you're looking at a defense that, we've talked on this show, and we're not breaking news here, but like that was supposed to be a really good group, or it is supposed to be a really good group. And for the last 2-3 years, it felt like the injury bug has just followed this team around. This is like our 3rd Achilles in 3 years. Like everyone always seems to be hurt, and they've been practicing for a week and you're already down 3 guys. And it's just like, how much can this team take from an injury standpoint?
That's the big question I was going to get to ultimately, because, and I'm curious your thoughts on it too, Megs, because I think we all believe this defense is going to be good. We all believe this defense is going to bounce back from, I've argued that I don't think the defense was as bad as people think last year. Yeah. They were just on the field a ton because the offense was absolutely awful. Mm-hmm. But did they take a step back from the year before? Of course. And so I think they were sort of set up to take a step back in the other direction where it's like, okay, they're a dominant group again. And I still think they can. I still think this defensive line is going to kind of be the ones who drive the boat and steer the ship a little bit. And if that group's dominant, then the sky is absolutely the limit. But at the same time, the more guys you lose, and listen, there's going to be other injuries, whether they're season ending or things that cost you a game or two, there's going to be other guys that get hurt. And so, how do they respond to those things? Do they have the depth at this point to still be as good as we think they're going to be? And I think that is a really, really valid question. I'm starting to have my doubts. Like you said, you JOK, who they probably weren't counting on this year anyway, and that's part of the reason why they drafted Carson Schlesinger. But you lose Jordan Hicks, now you lose Martin Emerson. They are running thin now at a couple different positions, and it's like, okay, can you overcome this? And I think there are some valid concerns or worries about them being able to do that.
Yeah, and Jerm, we talked about on our last show too, of hey, we thought the linebacker room was one of the deeper rooms that the Browns had and one we were most excited for. And now your starting group is Carson Schlesinger, who's a rookie, who's going to be the green dot. He's going to be setting the defense. That's crazy. I mean, he's had 7 NFL practices so far, but confident he can do it. And then he's lined up next to Devin Bush and Jerome Baker. And then Mahmoud Diabate is going to be kind of filtering in there. But those 4 names, I think they're all solid players, but do they strike fear into Lamar Jackson? Do they strike fear into Joe Burrow? Do they strike fear into Aaron Rodgers or whomever it may be? You got Josh Allen on the schedule. You got Jared Goff. You got Jordan Love. I don't think so. I don't think that that's the case. And it's unfortunate as hell because, that at least that second level is, that's the backbone of your defense. And then you get to the secondary and you're like, hey, you're expecting Martin Emerson to be the guy that trails whomever it may be while Denzel's shutting down Jamar Chase or Denzel's shutting down Justin Jefferson or whoever. And now you're like, Greg, we don't know if Greg can play on the outside, right? You kind of see clips from practice where Jerry Jeudy's kind of getting after him a little bit. And we'll get into the practice clip thing in a little bit because I have a thought on that. But you don't know if he can do it and do it consistently, man. It's just, it sucks. It sucks early for this team.
Yeah, definitely some concerns. And like I said, I worry a little bit about how much more they can take, if that makes sense. And I still think they have a shot to be really good. I actually think Carson Schlesinger being sort of thrust into this role early in his career might be a positive thing because you're going to find out really, really quickly, hey, can this guy play at this level? Can he handle all this? He's going to have to kind of learn on the fly. I think that's kind of a good thing to learn about the top pick in the second round from this year. So I sort of take that positive spin approach to that situation. But not as you would have rather know like he's going to play, but also be able to learn from some guys and not have to do all that. So we'll see. But I Carson is somebody I think is ready to handle, but we'll see what it all looks like. I'm sure there'll be some growing pains, of course, because he's a rookie.
I want to stick on Carson Schlesinger real quick for just a minute. The clip surfacing from him at practice, this dude flies around with his hair on fire, dude. Like,
yeah, he hit Dylan Sampson pretty hard the other day
in a thud drill, and like
Deuce Staley sort of talked about like, yeah, he's got to learn to keep his pad level down. I thought he was like, I love that he hit him like that, and I was like, dude, Deuce is crazy. He's the best.
Dude,
I love that guy.
There was a clip that surfaced today where he was kind of like, it was like a side view clip. I think it was Max Loeb who posted it. If you don't follow him, I do suggest it. He's a Carroll guy, just like us. But he is kind of from the side. You can't really see Carson, but he just comes into the screen kind of like a bat out of hell. And that dude flies around. And that was kind of his take. That was kind of the thing that they fell in love with. Right. In his 1 year that he started at UCLA, he led the Big Ten in tackles, and everyone just talks about how he always had a nose for the football. And that's something you can't teach. There was a clip of him the other day of punching a ball out, like just stuff like that, where it's like, ooh, that's a football player. Like you see that type of stuff, like those clues are like, oh, he's around the football. He's finishing guys to the ground. He's tackling hard. He's punching the ball out. Like he's doing all the right things and doing it at a high level. It is exciting. And to kind of piggyback off of what we said last week and what you just said, could be a really good learning opportunity for him to get his feet wet doing this and calling the defense. It is just a shame that he probably will never play with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, because those two in the linebacker room would be pretty sick together.
Carson already I think looks the part. It's just a matter of doing it on the NFL field when the pads are on, and the pads are on in practice right now. But I just mean, like the bullets are flying in a meaningful setting, that type of stuff. I also, I want to get, since we started this conversation with the Martin Emerson thing, how do you feel about, how do I word this? Because I don't want to I don't know. Here's what I'll say. I was standing there when it all went down, and I'm like, recording him and then like getting him on the card and all that. And then like before I was like thinking about it, and I was like, do I really want to post this? Because here's the thing, like I know that we're there to cover it, and I know that we're there to report the news and like share clips of the news and let people know what's going on so they can see it. But when you see a guy sitting on the back of a car like in tears, towel over his head, I don't know, I'm a very empathetic person. So I was like, do I really want to share this video? And so I just ended up tweeting like what happened and saying, hey, he got carted off. Not good. Not a good look. We'll find out more. While a lot of the other people, obviously, that work in the media did share it. And I'm not begrudging them for sharing it. It is our job. But I also don't know. I guess my mind, Anthony, goes to if somebody was shooting me, like video recording me on like my worst day when I just like when something bad happened to me, how would I feel if they were then like sharing that video on social media? And so I stopped myself short of it. And I felt like I was kind of like, I don't know, like you just kind of do it and we don't really think about it, but he's a person at the end of the day. So I kind of, I don't know.
It right there.
Am I wrong for having a moral compass, I guess is my question?
No, I was going to say we're doing therapy here tonight or today on Cleveland Browns on the side. But no, dude, it's moments like that remind you that these players, these professionals are people. They remind you that these guys are human. And you think back to, there's a handful of these Achilles injuries that have happened. You think back to Tyrese Halliburton in the finals, like your heart like broke for him. Like you and I have talked a lot about that series. I was so anti-Indiana that whole series, but your heart just like breaks for a guy like that. Jason Tatum the same, Damian Lillard the same. Like, you forget that these guys are human beings and they care so much, and and they're young kids. Like what happens when you were 23, man, and you had something crazy happen in your life that could potentially derail your career. Like that's a big moment for anybody. And no, I think you're right. I think you were right, Jerm. You went with your gut. I think that's totally a fair assessment by you to not hit post, not hit send. My dad always used to tell me, don't always hit send.
Yeah, it's I don't know. People would probably tell me I'm crazy and I should just do it, but I don't know. I have more empathy than others, I guess. I don't know. Not that other people in the media aren't empathetic. I didn't feel right to me in that moment. I was like, this feels kind of. I literally was shooting it, and I was like, this feels kind of gross. I should hit send, and I didn't hit send. So
yeah,
here we are, talking about it. Anyway, let me know if I was in the right or the wrong. I don't know if in the comment section if you so choose. But we'll move on because plenty of other stuff to get to, and of course the quarterbacks continue to be the focal point of training camp in general. I took a bunch of heat the other day because I said I thought it was Dylan Gabriel's best day, even though he threw an interception, and I didn't mention the interception, and so people were mad at me on like this short
clip. How could you?
On another
Spencer,
platform.
how could you?
Guys, it was a 2 minute and 30-second clip, and I was trying to cover the Haslam's conversation, the Martin Emerson injury, and what the quarterbacks are doing. God forbid I didn't mention that stat on that little video that I shared. I could always bring it up later. It's really okay. We're all going to survive here. But anyway,
here's a question. All right, wait. Here's a question. Go back to that. Were you watching practice at that time? That specific okay. Was it an end of game scenario? That's what it looked like to me.
Oh, the interception?
Yes, because the guy took an immediate.
That's the thing. Like,
yes,
this is my gripe.
Let's do it. Let's do it. We got to have the conversation.
This is my gripe with all this. Like, there's certain people putting out like a graphic of the stats, the stats from training camp practice, and the problem with it is people use this as gospel, and there's no context.
They had it on ESPN. They have it on.
There's no context to it, so people just see like, well, this quarterback was. He was perfect today. He was 7-7 and like, he didn't have any interceptions. And they think like, okay, he had the better day. So how is he still in front of this guy or behind this guy or whatever? And the truth is like on that day specifically for Dylan Gabriel, I think he was like 10 of 16 or something. I remember it. But regardless, and he had the interception. But listen, like not all interceptions are created equal. Sometimes guys throw interceptions because the ball's tipped off the receiver's hands and they drop it, and then it turns into an interception. Like you putting that on Dylan Gabriel, if that's what happens, that's not what happened on that play. But to your point, they were doing like a 2-minute offense situation.
Yes.
They were at like the 40-yard line, and it was like, hey, you just got to throw it up and hope. It was kind of like a Hail Mary scenario. There was 3 seconds left, and like, did he make a dumb decision to throw it short of the end zone? Yeah, because it was like all goes. You could clearly see it was all goes. And he should have just thrown it up. He should have made sure the ball got to the end zone to give his guy a chance. But like even in that scenario, like was it a bad throw because he threw it short of the end zone? Yes. Like that's not what you want to do there. You need that ball to end up in the end zone. So for that, if you want to criticize him, fine. But at the same time, like it's like a Hail Mary. So even if he had thrown it in the end zone, it still could have been intercepted. And then it still would have shown up on his stat sheet as an interception. And then people would have been like, oh, he threw an interception. Yeah, well, it was a Hail Mary. Like who gives a shit? Like I just can't, like I can't do this every day where we have to like sit there and explain why the stats are a certain way and like why certain guys are in certain places. I've been adamant like Shedeur should have team reps with the ones at this point. I know on Wednesday he got a chance to finally play against the first team defense. It wasn't pretty from what I understand because he had the first team or he had the second team offensive line in front of him. And Myles Garrett is going to absolutely destroy the second team offensive line. Like he's too good. But at the same time, like we got to have like the context of every situation here. And I think it was like beyond that interception. I thought Dylan that day on Tuesday made some of his best throws of training camp. He had a couple layered throws that I thought were brilliant. Like he looked good. And that's why I felt that way. So I'm sorry if that ruffled feathers. I have no idea.
And what I'm about to say is less about Dylan and Shedeur. Like I think that they're both, from what I can tell, right? You're there on campus every day, but from what I can tell, I think they're both doing some really good things. Like I think Shadeur's doing some good things. The one completion he had yesterday, he kind of stepped into pressure. Like Miles was coming off of his left side, and he kind of slid around Miles's initial pressure and delivered a nice like 10-yard gain. Just like good things that you're seeing him and kind of continue to develop. But I think I go back to that Dillon Gabriel interception, and the context clues are like out of control there. So obviously Cameron Mitchell picks it off and immediately hits the ground in a slide. That tells me that's an end of game scenario, because when you have the lead, right, you go down immediately, you pick it off, you go down, game over, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is when we say like the context matters, like coaches will start those scenarios and everybody knows it. It's in their meeting at 8 a.m. in the morning. It is in their walkthrough at 10 a.m. It is at their practice in the huddle before the game. The coach will say, all right, offense, you're down 4. There's a minute and 20 seconds left. Go. You have one timeout, go. And that's the scenario. Some days it may be offense, Dillon, you're down 1. You have 3 timeouts. You got to go. We need to get you to here to win the football game. It's all situational based. So let's just play devil's advocate. Hey, Browns are down 4, right? Browns are down 4 with 30 seconds left. You don't want him, throwing one out of the end zone, right? Maybe to save the down. Maybe we didn't even know what down it was. Maybe it was 4th down. He was trying to fit one in a tight window, whatever. And it's not a defense of Dillon Gabriel. It's a defense of practice. And this is where I'm pissed off about all this stuff, because we have reached a fever pitch of clips. People should not be allowed to record practice. Like, practice is for these guys to like half joking, half not. Practice is for these guys to get better at what they're doing. Like, they are supposed to make mistakes in practice. You're supposed to miss blocks. You're supposed to throw incompletions. You're supposed to throw interceptions. That's what practice is for. You're supposed to be building all that stuff, all that chemistry. You get a random clip, and you see an interception or whatever. It's not the end of the world. These guys are getting better. I cannot oh my gosh. It's something that has gone so overboard.
I think that last thing you said was what's important. Like, are they getting better? Are you seeing them make tougher throws? Are you seeing them pick things up better, or more? Are you seeing them gain confidence? Those are the things that I'm looking for this time of year primarily. And I think you're seeing that really with all the quarterbacks. Like, it's not just because somebody saying Dillon Gabriel had a good day doesn't have to be like a shot at Shedeur Sanders. Like, it doesn't have to be like, well, Shedeur Sanders had a shit day. Like, that's not what anybody is saying. It's just observing, like, hey, yeah, he threw an interception in a certain scenario, but like the other stuff that we saw from him that day overall was good. I thought it was his best day. I thought Shedeur had a fine day that day. It wasn't his best, but like, he's had other good days. I thought the day before that he probably had his best day. And going, well, and I don't even want to open this can of worms, but like, some of these plays are sacks, but they let them continue, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But he had he didn't have an incompletion the entire day, and he threw 2 touchdowns if you're counting the one that was potentially a sack, or he had at least 1 touchdown if you're not counting that one, whatever. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, like each day is a little bit different, and each guy's getting a good, like, here's the most important thing to me. With Kenny Pickett obviously out right now with this hamstring issue, I think that both those guys are making the most of the reps that they're getting and making the most of the increased reps that they're getting at that. And that's what you want to see. I've been adamant and banged the drum that I think Shedeur Sanders should have more time with the ones. I think he should get those opportunities. But I also think you can tell that the Browns have put more on Dillon Gabriel's plate at this point than they have Shedeur. A lot of Shedeur's stuff is like, hey, drop back, get the ball out quickly. And with Dillon Gabriel, they've like designed some stuff where it's like, okay, we want to see you get through your reads and get to this throw. And that's the biggest difference that I've noticed. Now, that doesn't mean that won't change. And frankly, for Shedeur at this point, because Kevin keeps downplaying the fact that he hasn't gotten reps with the ones. And he's like, don't read into it too much. But like, we got to read into some of this stuff, right? Like, we got to be able to tell to some degree.
It's crazy.
This has to mean something, right? Like how they're rotating these quarterbacks. And so it's pretty evident at this point that they view Shedeur as the right now the 3rd guy, but even when Pickett was out there, like the 4th guy in the depth chart. And I think like the best thing that Shedeur can do is keep making the rest the most of his reps. And then listen, these preseason games, he's going to get a ton of playing time, like a ton, because they got joint practices with the Panthers. Flacco and Pickett, if Pickett's back, are going to get a lot of those snaps during the practices with them and the Eagles. And so that's going to pave the way for those guys to rest on those games and the rookies to get most of the snaps in those games. And so if Shedeur goes out and balls out, he's going to play himself into earning more opportunities, and that's the biggest thing that you want to see. So I think that's the way that you just got to kind of look at this thing. Is like there's context to all this. You can't just take blanket stats and be like, well, hey, he had the best day, he had the worst day. Like you got to know the context of like what drill they're doing, it's like how the throws looked, like where each guy started at the beginning of training camp and where each guy is now. Like that matters. So I don't know, man. Like we're 7 days in, and the quarterback thing is just becoming exhausting to me. And I'm ready for there to be like a preseason game where we can actually like see it.
Well, that's it. That's the big thing. And I do want to kind of backtrack because I got off on a little tangent there. Like it's very tongue in cheek of me because I sit at work and I'm like, can't wait for clips of today. Like, can't wait to see it all. So like, it just so much gets lost, and there's so many. Everyone jumps to conclusions. So a little bit tongue in cheek there, but the game. It's funny because they're on the road in Carolina, on the road in Philly, and then they come home for a game against the Rams for their final preseason game. But like, imagine if those preseason games were home. Like that, I have a feeling that stadium will be sold out for preseason games because so many damn people are so excited.
I mean, the Rams game might be close to it with I don't know. We'll see, but yeah, I keep forgetting about that Rams game. By the way,
it will be very good to see both those guys in a game setting where everybody knows the scenario, right? And you're going to see, hey, how big of a factor is Dylan Gabriel's height? You know, like when he does drop back, does he get lost in the pocket? Does Shedeur Sanders move well? Is his arm strong enough? Like you're going to see all these things. You're going to get to answer those questions. And like you said, there's going to be a lot of separation. There's 10 days until that first game. That's where a lot of that separation is going to start to happen.
Yeah, I just need joint practices at this point. I need preseason games at this point.
Are you good, dude?
I need something else.
Are you okay?
I don't know. This whole quarterback thing is just crazy. And listen, and ultimately, I think right now Joe Flacco is still the leader in the clubhouse. Now, Gabriel's getting a lot of reps. He's taking more reps at the ones even in recent days than Flacco. I still right now am of the belief that that's just because they don't need to see Flacco. But you know, it will be telling, I think, how they handle those reps more so in the joint practices, because those are sessions they view as, okay, we're getting ready for a season now. And who I think after the Eagles joint practice is where we start to really get a sense of who they are leaning towards being the starter. And if Pickett's not back by then, or if he is back by then, but he's still sort of, you know, easing his way in, it might just kind of end up being Flacco by default. So we'll have to see. So I did mention that Jimmy and D Haslam spoke to the media earlier this week. There's obviously a ton of stuff said about the stadium situation, and that's one thing. But since you're just talking about the quarterbacks, I actually think some of the more interesting comments from Jimmy came in regards to the quarterback situation and where they sort of stand on things. And we'll play this longer clip here first, because Jimmy Haslam was basically asked about like what he's learned about running a team. And I thought it was interesting. His answer basically was a doubling down on what he said this spring about showing patience, and specifically showing patience with the quarterback position. And I think it gives us some insight into how the team feels about the current quarterback situation and the opportunities to find a quarterback coming up here potentially in 2026. We'll play this clip. Here's what Jimmy had to say about the quarterback situation.
You think doesn't look like very much. No, I say it's hard, and you know, you make mistakes, and the business world we come in, you can hire anytime you want to. Okay, there's no seasonal, there's no draft, and so you can build a team over a period of time. You know, almost at free. There's no draft, there's no free agency, there's no control. So it's obviously not easy. You know, we made the decision last year to take a step back after last year's disaster and looking at our roster and knowing that we needed a quarterback to do this over a 2 or 3 year period. You know, it's too early to say, but we like our rookie group. We'll know a lot more, you know, after we play 2 or 3 exhibition games and the young guys get to play a lot. But we like the group, and particularly if Q can come back, we like it a lot.
So he literally said, knowing they need a quarterback, they made the decision to, you know, take a step backwards and say, hey, all right, well, we're going to let this play out over the course of a 2 to 3 year period. he also mentions at the end there, like, we'll see what, as we talked about, like finally getting to preseason games, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, what those guys can do in preseason settings and in actual exhibition game settings and go from there. But like, I just felt those comments echoed what Jimmy Haslam said at the owners meetings, where he talked about patience and fixing, how it was going to take time to fix the hole that they find themselves in from the Deshaun Watson thing. And so this is kind of it falls into two different buckets here. I think those comments sort of give us even more belief that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are going to be here beyond 2025. But I also think it speaks, they have a very pragmatic approach to this quarterback situation, where they basically are saying, we're not really sure about this group. We'll see if somebody surprises us, but we're kind of going into next year. And there was another clip too where you talked about like draft pick accumulation and how important that is and how they have 2 firsts next year. It definitely sounds like, to me, they believe like their franchise quarterback is still coming, and they're going to take the time necessarily to find him. And it's not just going to be this rushed thing.
Yeah. And he even said too, like, hey, they like these rookie guys, and if somebody can be something. And I also think too, like in this rookie group, right, with Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, like it's really important that as camp goes on and the season goes on, that nobody loses the context of, hey, Dillon Gabriel was a 3rd-round pick and Shedeur Sanders was a 5th-round pick. Like, if you get one of those guys to be a starter, that's a massive win. If you get one of those guys to be a career backup, a 5-year, 10-year backup, that's also a win for both of those draft slots. And what happens to the other guy happens to the other guy. But that's the lens you see it in, right? Like if you're the Titans and Cam Ward doesn't work out, that's the number 1 overall pick, and you invested a lot in that, and you're expecting him to be the guy for a long time. We've been in that position a number of times. We may be in it next year. But with where these guys, the investment that you made in these guys, like if you get some long-term stability in a room that's costing you a boatload of cash, you can do it cheap. You can do your starter and your backup very cheap. Like that could be that's also part of this solution to this. So there's like levels to it. Obviously we hope that one of the franchise quarterback is in there. Brock Purdy is in either Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, but time's going to tell on that front to see if either of these guys can be just like that. Yeah, no, you're spun with that. And yeah, like we have to give it time here. But I do think it's interesting that the owners now basically told you 2 times. Like, yeah, we are anticipating this is going to be a couple-year process to find this quarterback. And so I think that kind of gives you some insight into how they kind of view the state of this room right now, and that they aren't necessarily banking on these guys being the guy, and that they have the table is set for them to potentially land that guy next year. Now, what's interesting about landing that guy next year is we know one of the names at the top of this class, of course, is Arch Manning if he decides to come out next year. And we also know that Jimmy Haslam has a very deep connection in the Manning family because of his relationship with Peyton Manning, who obviously played at Tennessee, which is the program that Jimmy is a big-time donor for. And so understanding that, people have made the natural connection of, well, hey, the Browns really want Arch Manning. But I think here was that, and what's funny is I expected an Arch Manning question for Jimmy. I did not expect it to be the first question asked. And so we'll play you his response here, but I found it interesting that I found his answer interesting. I'll put it to you that way. Here's what he had to say.
You get paid by how many hits you get, okay? And I think if you know the Manning family, I would bet that, and I don't know Arch at all, okay? I bet he stays in college 2 years, so I don't even think that's worth discussing.
So Jimmy's subscribing to the same thing everybody else is, that they think Arch is going to stay for 2 years. I guess if you don't believe him, sure. I don't know. Here's the thing. I kind of feel like him saying, I don't even know Arch. Like, I think he was being honest there.
I was going to say,
what does he have to lose? Like what good does it do him to be like, like I don't know why else he would say that, unless it was like he was really just trying to downplay the notion that he had any connection with Arch whatsoever. But like, it's fair to reason that, like, yeah, he knows the Manning family and he's close with Peyton, but that doesn't mean he's like hanging out with the Manning family all the time and like, hey, Arch is my guy. He's over at my house. Like Arch, and it's not like it's Peyton's kid. It's Cooper's
That's
kid.
the thing.
Like,
it's Cooper's kid. Yes,
right.
It's Cooper's kid. Yes. And he goes to Texas.
Right. So I do believe that he was being honest when he said that. He doesn't necessarily know Arch like on a personal level. But I do think he also probably does have the insight that we all think we have on the Manning family, where it's like, hey, they're going to be pretty measured about the way they do things. And I could see, we could all see Arch Manning staying multiple years. And I think that seems fair.
Yeah. I mean, we don't even know. We're just, everyone's so excited about Arch, and you don't even know really what he is. Like, there's a real world where he doesn't turn out to be a great quarterback like his uncles. Like, he's played in 3 games. I think he's going to be really good. Like, I think he's got all the tools. But there's a world where he's not. And everyone's like, yeah, that could also happen too. I don't know. It's going to get weird. It's going to get weird here in the next few weeks. Yeah. Like, when stuff starts going south, I'm not even going to say if. When stuff starts going south, the conversation is going to get very loud. And there's a handful of names. Drew Aller's one of them. That Cleveland kid, he's going to be coming out from Penn State. Lenore Sellers is another. Like, Nussmeier from LSU. Like, there's big names at the top of this draft. The Browns are potentially going to have 2 top 10 picks in this draft. So it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a fascinating few months here.
The Drew Aller conversation is interesting because
it'll be loud.
That'll be something we'll have to get into at some point, I'm sure, depending on how quickly the season goes up in flames. But yeah, listen, like Arch has to show first that he is the guy that we all think he is.
Right.
Also, I'll say this, like, his time at Texas has already been pretty unconventional because he wasn't going to start. Like, Quinn Ewers was going to start ahead of him, and he chose to stay and not transfer out despite people offering him a bunch of money. And so I could see him theoretically staying the next year. Now, that could all change if Texas goes and wins a national championship and he wins like the Heisman Trophy. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm never going to have more higher stock than this, so I might as well go. Mm-hmm. But again, that's why we have to let this thing play out. And I don't think it's a shoo-in that he's there. I'll say this too. Arch could be really, really good. There are a lot of guys that could be really, really good in this quarterback class. I think Sam Levitt has a chance to be a Heisman candidate. Garrett Nussmeier seems like maybe the most pro-ready right now. You mentioned Drew Aller. You mentioned Lenore Sellers. Like, there are a number of names of guys that people are going to want to pay attention to beyond just Arch Manning. But I understand why there's like the connecting of the dots there. Mm-hmm. But I think Jimmy was telling the truth here in that, like, he doesn't really know Arch, and it's probably too early to speculate on anything about his future and potentially coming to Cleveland.
Yeah, very funny that it was the first question of the press conference too. Like, Tony just jumped right in.
I couldn't. Yeah,
the report. The report.
I figured it. Listen, I figured it was coming, but I didn't expect it to be the first thing. So that was kind of funny.
The package deal report of Nick Saban and Arch Manning was something to behold, man. That was special stuff.
That was Coward. So there you go.
Special coming out of Fox.
We'll play this clip as well, sort of pivoting here, but Jimmy and D. Haslam talked about the Quinshon Judkins situation. I found these comments interesting. We can talk about it here briefly, but here's what they had to say about that situation and how the Browns handle, players who get in disciplinary issues.
Let me say it's extremely frustrating. Okay. Obviously, we're not communicating as well as we should, and we take responsibility for that. We have internal resources, we have external resources. We talk about it continually, and it's something that we need to do a better job on. But it is frustrating.
Yeah, it's a big focus for us in the organization. So thanks for asking.
The repeated incidents for different players in the year, is that reflective of your team's vetting process?
That's the question I ask. Okay, let's go back and let's look at Quinshon, let's look at Devin, let's look at Michael Hall. And there was, the best of my knowledge, and we talked about this yesterday with Andrew, there was nothing in any of their backgrounds that showed anything like this.
Have these incidents maybe changed your approach or maybe prompted more resources that you guys are looking into?
Well, I think whenever you're not successful, you got to take a step back and say, what can we do better? Okay, if you'd asked me a month ago, I would say, no, we're all over it. We talk about it continually. We've had outside speakers, inside speakers. We talk about it a lot, but clearly we need to look to see what else we can do. It's not acceptable.
Do you expect Quinshon Judkins to eventually sign and play for you?
I do, but that's, we all understand due process of law, and the law does not move quickly. But yes, we're cautiously optimistic.
So the big thing is at the end there saying he feels like that he will be here eventually. He will get signed, because we know the thing that complicates his situation further specifically is that he is unsigned right now. But I think I believe the Browns when they say that they invest resources in trying to educate these guys on these situations, how to avoid them, why it's a serious thing. They vet these players for those types of things. Because listen, like, you're using draft capital on these guys. You don't want to think that you're going to waste it if the guy gets in some sort of situation that gets him suspended. So that matters to the guy, the people making these decisions too. But at the same time, I just think, like, for a lot of people, those comments from Jimmy sort of like go in one ear and out the other for a lot of Browns fans, and even just other fans of other teams that think the Browns are, sort of a bad organization for, I guess, a number of reasons, but also because of the Deshaun thing. I just think the Deshaun thing makes it easy for people to write off anything they say on the subject, because they're like, well, as long as you're signed as long as you're attached to that guy, and as long as you did what you did to acquire him and gave him all that money, we just don't believe that you take any of this seriously. And I think that's just going to have to be sort of like the reality of how this organization is viewed until they can get out from under the Deshaun dilemma, and they can kind of move forward and take a step forward.
Yeah, it's not even something that, with the way the season's off and running, right? We don't see Deshaun in practice anymore, like any of that stuff. I didn't even think about it from that context as well. And, you want to believe that they're doing it right. And, we've said it a number of times. I've said it a bunch. Like, if you want the right justice to be served in this matter, like if there was wrongdoing, you want it to be taken care of. But it is frustrating that every year it seems to be some major issue between one of the Browns players and a female, wherever, wherever it is in their past or whomever it may be. It just really sucks. It's just a tough thing, and it's always involved with the Browns player.
But what I will say too is, like, this isn't a Browns problem only.
No.
Like, it's a league problem. Like, there's other teams that have these same issues. The problem is just, again, because the Browns tied themselves to Deshaun, become the easy team to point at and say, well, clearly they have culture problems. And I'm not saying there aren't things they have to fix. It sounds like I think there's some truth in Jimmy saying, like, when these things happen, we look at what we're doing and we say, are we doing enough? What can we do better? Because the message maybe isn't getting through. I think they do think that way. But I think a lot of people just assume, clearly you're not doing enough, and I don't think you're ever going to do enough because you keep having these problems happen. And as long as you signed up for the Deshaun experience, it's like a reap what you sow type thing, I think, for a lot of people when they hear the comments on this subject. But again, sounds like Jimmy, he laid it out like cautiously optimistic about Quinshon eventually playing, but the legal process has to play out, and we have to see what type of suspension, if he gets one from the league. And then we'll kind of go from there and see what happens. No timetable seems imminent. Like, it's something that is going to take a longer time, and we have no answers on, so we can't really speculate much more than that. We'll get to the last thing I think I just wanted to talk about was that I think the last 3 practices or so, we've seen Deontay Johnson just rise up the step chart. I was kind of shocked, like, on Saturday, he was running with the 3s primarily, and I was kind of like, I thought he'd be a little higher on the step chart when camp started. And then I thought he started he made a really nice, like, play on a comeback route, sort of like diving, tipped the ball to himself from Dylan Gabriel. Then he had another really nice catch. He had a nice route, rather, I should say, where he just completely tied up Cameron Mitchell on an out route and then got open. I think Dylan Gabriel also threw that one to him. And it was like, okay, this is the guy that you want. And let's face it, like, at a position with a lot of inexperience, Deontay Foster, and he should be able to make plays like that. And so I think it was refreshing to see him have a couple of nice days where it suddenly feels like this is the guy that the Browns were hoping he could be. And now we just have to find out, like, is he truly bought in or not? I think is the big question people are going to continue to have with him. But he's started to look really good, and I think that's a good sign because we have a lot of questions about that wide receiver room in general.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of stuff starting to shake. And from Deontay's perspective, like that's the question: does he care? And from all things you can see, it looks like he cares. And we're 7 days in, so like, right, a lot's going to change. The weather's going to get cold. That's going to change some things, right? But it is positive to see. And
that seems to be what kept him all that led to him not going in the game in the first place. So
yeah, right. So it does seem to be that the receiver room starting to kind of shake out. My guy Mike Woods was cut today because of his hand injury or wave due to his injury. So that's a bummer. He was on my final 53, but the Luke Floria stock is rising. Cedric Tillman's been looking good. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy. And there's going to be DeAndre Carter. That was the one that you've called from the jump about him being the kind of the return specialist. So his name's in the mix. But Jamari Thrash has showed spurts of getting up. This Gage Laverdane. How do I pronounce his last name?
Larvadane.
That dude's making plays every single day.
Him and Luke Floria, by the way.
It's amazing.
Honestly, the 6 wide receiver spot could just come down to those two guys.
Yeah, that's what
I'm going to say that now. I think Luke Floria probably ends up on this team as a practice squad guy. That's my guess. But for that initial 53-man roster cut down, like I could see this becoming, hey, Larvadane had a really good camp. Floria had a really good camp. We got to figure out what we're doing here. And they keep one and the other one gets cut and they try to get him back to the practice squad. I could see something like that playing out. And listen, like in this group, it wouldn't be all that surprising for one of those guys to actually make the team because there's just not a lot of experience. I think the guys you laid out, Jerry said, Carter, Deontay, are your sort of like 4 guys that you know for sure. I think Jamari Thrash is one. And then it comes like that last spot kind of is just a random assortment of guys and names. And it's like, okay, who are you taking out of this group, essentially?
And that's a spot who needs to contribute on special teams. And like, I will say this, like Luke is a smaller guy, right? That's
what makes it hard for him to make.
Makes it really tough when was he 5'10", 5'9"? I
think so. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, just like kind of on that smaller side, whereas Gage is a little bit taller, brings a little bit more of that physicality kind of to the table. So obviously, that 6th spot, you're hoping isn't a game-changing spot because if you're in that type of scenario, you're in a bad spot in the season. But it has been cool to see both of those guys just totally take advantage of their opportunity and make the most out of it. Early on at least in camp.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those two guys play. We talked about the quarterbacks in preseason games and those joint practices. It's great that they're doing it against their own team. Let's see them do it against other teams, and that might tell the story of whether or not one of them does make the team. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We went a little longer than we wanted to, but there was a lot to cover. It's
been a couple days.
Especially with the Jimmy Haslam stuff. So appreciate you stopping by. We encourage you, as always, to head on over to si.com/NFL/Browns. Check out more content. More of our written content, I should say, covering practice and the preseason to this point, the training camp to this point, and everything kind of going on out there in Berea. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We'll have plenty more content like this later this week, leading into the weekend. And, of course, throughout training camp and the preseason as we cover this Cleveland Browns team and follow this Cleveland Browns team with you and for you. What you got, Migs?
We went 50 minutes and we didn't talk about there's a football game tonight. There's football tonight.
Yeah.
Lions are charged.
We're doing this. We're doing this thing.
Oh, yeah, we're doing this.
No, nothing annoys me more than the people who are like, oh, we got like football.
Yeah.
This is the last, like last week was the last week without football. Like, Come on, guys. Nobody cares about the Hall of Fame game. It's basically like it's like it's the guys that are going to be the first guys cut on the 53-man roster.
Trey Lance is starting for the Chargers. Let's go.
And Trey Lance is like that's like going to a minor league baseball game And you're like getting excited. You're getting excited about the pitcher that like got drafted like number 1 overall like 10 years ago, and you're like, oh yeah, remember him? I get to see him pitch in Double-A now tonight. And it's like, yeah, he's washed up. That's all that means.
Germ, sad.
I haven't watched the Hall of Fame game since. Well, I mean, the Browns were only in it a couple years ago, but that was the last time I even paid any lick of attention to the Hall.
I've watched every single one of them. Well, I'm from
worthless.
That's
worthless. Last week without football. Yeah, I mean, if you care about this nonsensical thing that they play,
I'm gonna watch every snap tomorrow. Now we'll have a report next show. We'll have a full breakdown.
To me, not even on my radar. So.
Not even on his radar. Get this guy out of here.
I stopped watching Thursday Night Football last year, man. So I'm not going to start watching. I'm not going to. My reindoctrination isn't going to be watching the Hall of Fame game.
Tom Benson Stadium. Canton's going to be looking good. Pat McAfee's there. We got Antonio Gates, Kent State grad, getting inducted. Come on, dude.
He's not getting inducted there. I'm not. There's anything wrong with the Hall of Fame ceremony. He's not getting inducted at the game. Like, fine. Hall of Fame ceremonies are great. I don't care about the Hall of Fame.
It's disappointing.
Don't need it.
Don't need it. It's disappointing. Chargers.
Don't need the Hall of Fame game. Don't even care.
Drop in the comments who you think's going to win.
Oh my gosh! If
the
anyone's betting on the Hall of Fame game, then you are truly. I can tell you this right now. You're a degenerate if you're betting on the Hall of Fame game. That's going to do it for us. We appreciate you stopping by as always. And as always, keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with the Cleveland Browns on SI.